Hi, I'm Gavin,
And I'm Dave.
and you're on the Fringe.
Come along with us for a ride on a podcast where we talk about an area or a thing going on in the world that needs more attention, just like you do. Let's go.
On the Fringe. Here we go.
Hello, hello, everyone. Welcome back to On the Fringe. This is Dave. I'm here with Gavin today.
Yo.
Howdy. And we're going to be talking about farming today. We're going to be
Oh,
talking. Uh-huh.
good old,
Excited?
down on the farm farming with old
Yeah.
McDonald.
Yeah, old MacDonald had a farm, but I don't think this was old MacDonald's farm. This was probably old Mr. Wong's farm, set up
Oh,
very
not old
likely
Mr.
in,
Wong.
yeah, probably Mr. Wong's farm, set up somewhere in the Golden Triangle. So it'd be
Oh,
somewhere like Laos or Cambodia, Myanmar, and I don't think many people were, or many animals were going E-I-E-I-O. It was more just tears and pain. It's
I'm
not a very
sorry.
cheer place. It's not a
Not a
very
very,
cheery place.
not a very cheerful farm. Not a funny farm at all. Um, So, of course, we're talking about scam farming in Southeast Asia. We're going back to the Golden Triangle. If anyone's been listening this long, one of our very earliest episodes was about scam farming in Southeast Asia. And we're returning to the subject because, once again, it is emerging into the public eye. Can you just give us a little bit of a lowdown as to why, Dave?
So, in the last couple of years, there have been a lot of different scams that have come out of Southeast Asia. And one of the biggest scams now is called pig butchering. We talked a little bit about it, but it's basically where a scammer will build a relationship with somebody from the West. They'll build trust over a long period of time. And once they build trust, they will ask that person for money. Could be either through like an online dating profile, or it could be through a business, or it could be some sort of an investment or cryptocurrency. And once they get your money, you basically never hear from them again. And even if they don't get money, they're still out there trying to take your personal information. So they'll get your name, they'll figure out, okay, this is where this guy lives based on his IP address, this is his phone number, and we can take this, we can package it, and we can sell it to somebody else who might be interested in potentially targeting this guy.
Now, can you remind me again as to why Southeast Asia, particularly the Golden Triangle region, why is there such a concentration of scam farming, particularly in Upper Burma?
I mean, you have a lot of problems in Upper Burma with corruption and weak governance and civil war going on for the last 10 to 12 years, even maybe before that. But it's very, very fertile ground for organized crime to come in, invest a little bit of money, and do some secret handshakes and start building up, what look like apartment complexes or cities. And then basically they can recruit people to work in jobs in these brand new cities. And then once they can recruit them in there, then they basically make their lives hell and give them a job that they had no intention of doing, but something that they're basically stuck doing.
Now, before we dive further into that, this is tangentially related, but I think it gives a good window into kind of how anarchic that part of the world is. Uh, on January 8th, Takeshi Ebisawa, 60 years old from Japan, pleaded guilty in Manhattan, New York, to conspiring with a network of associates to traffic nuclear materials out of Burma. Now, Ebisawa was the head of a Yakuza faction, that has connections with prominent militias in Upper Burma or Myanmar, and they were actually selling weapons grade plutonium out of Burma. They were processing it and removing it and selling it on the black market. This is not a well governed part of the world. And it's also right next to one of the largest economies in the world. It's right next to China. Uh, and when the current administration in the People's Republic of China began cracking down on organized crime about maybe over a decade ago, a lot of that business shifted out of the PRC itself and into the Golden Triangle because of the obvious lack of governance. And that has contributed, in my opinion, to the really abysmal situation today. And I think it also explains why so many of the people doing the pig farming tend to be people of Chinese descent who are trafficked or forced into the jobs.
Hmm. Yep. And they primarily go after, you're saying the Chinese diaspora, people from Malaysia, some people from Singapore,
Taiwan.
Thailand, Vietnam, and Taiwan is another place actually. They get Taiwanese as well.
Hmm.
And a lot of time, Indonesia too, but a lot of times they'll make what looks like a good job and they'll have it in Thailand or maybe even in Myanmar. And then once the person arrives in Thailand, sometimes people are kidnapped. They're taken from Thailand across the border into Myanmar, and they're basically forced then to work. And there was a recent Chinese actor that was taken from Thailand to Myanmar, and he was basically kidnapped for a while. He was released, but there are probably thousands, and I would even argue tens of thousands of people that are in a similar situation where they go, they think they have a job, and it ends up being something completely different, and they end up being forced into a type of indentured slavery.
And this is rapidly spreading. In fact, I know for certain that over the last couple of years, there are more and more instances of Indian citizens being caught up in this. And again, they tend to go over. They have started more and more targeting people with English language skills. So you'll have people who maybe worked in legit or not always legit call centers in India, and they're being enticed with jobs, usually in the case of India, usually directly to Burma. And yeah, it's not what it appears, and they get into a frankly pretty nightmarish situation. And
Mm-hmm.
again, as we've talked about before, this is not small scale. This is not mom and pop. There's some, hidden rooms in a few places. This is a factory level industry. And it pulls in quite incredible amounts of money. It's a very lucrative business. And again, because of the lack of regulation in that part of the world, I would say it's really next to straight up mineral extraction, probably one of the pillars of industry in Myanmar today.
And I would think as well, it's probably one of the most profitable businesses as
Mhm.
well. I mean, you have your initial costs, or okay, we're going to build the building, but once you get that building set up, if you're going after particularly elderly people are their primary target, so they're going after elderly people, and they're getting 10, 15, $20,000 coming in every hour, every 2 hours. This is just pure profit because they're not paying the people that are working anything. And they have their initial investment, and all they really have to do is pay off the local officials to not do anything. And yeah, the cops might come by once every month or once every couple of months, and they'll round up, a couple of unlucky folk, and they'll go, "Yeah, we did something. We shut down a scam farm," and it's whack-a-mole. This place will
Yeah.
shut down for a little bit and then it'll come back in a couple of months or even a few weeks where it's basically the same organization, just they just put a little bit of paint on it and change the name, and what do you know? It's back.
And increasingly, over the last year, this has become, I would say, a major domestic foreign policy issue for the Chinese government, where they have expressed, and they certainly feel the need to be seen to be taking a very hard line. And in fact, a lot of their intervention in the current civil war in Myanmar, I think, is largely down to the fact that they're getting domestic pressure from unhappy Chinese citizens who feel correctly targeted by these scam farms, who are disturbed by stories of Chinese actors, uh, everyday Chinese citizens going missing, winding up enslaved, essentially. And this is transformed into, I would say, a pretty key foreign policy motivator for the Chinese diplomatic service in Southeast Asia.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's certainly seen, um, it certainly moved them in a direction where they're probably a lot less supportive of the military regime in Myanmar than they used to be. And I think the scam farm publicity has a lot to do with that.
Yeah. And I think too, initially, if 5, 10 years ago, when it was smaller scale and they were mostly targeting foreigners, okay, we're glad to have these triads and these gangsters out of the country because we don't have to deal with them. But when they start making China look bad and it starts reflecting badly on the CCP, that's when they're going to have a problem because the CCP has a problem. And once China's government gets involved, they're probably just going to continue to have smaller operations where they go and they target a couple of people here and there and go, oh, we did it, we cleaned it up, and it'll pop back up. But it's always going to be just a lingering pain for people over there, but both within Myanmar and Laos, Cambodia, their governments, and the Chinese people and the Chinese government. Because this is not going to go away. It's so entrenched and it's been entrenched, and like you were saying, this is a huge part of the economy of Southeast Asia in the Golden Triangle.
And I think ultimately what it is just a classic whack-a-mole approach to a massive economic structural problem, where I feel like scam farming has taken the place, not entirely, because it's still a major hub for it, but it's taken the place to some degree of illegal narcotic trafficking. And I think because of that, it's going to be incredibly difficult to eliminate it without addressing the fact that the illicit economy in that part of the world is the economy. There's no formal economy that doesn't exist without the illicit economy driving everything. And this is, I would say, a really broad swath of continental Southeast Asia, most of northern Laos, all of northern Burma, and definitely large parts of Cambodia as well. It's just the business.
Yep. And in businesses like this, I mean, we talked a little bit about money laundering, but they're going to have to clean this money.
Yeah.
So I looked this yesterday. Thailand is looking at legalizing casinos. And casinos have been used in the past by North Koreans. They used a casino in the Philippines to launder a bunch of money. And I would think that organizations, criminal organizations in the Golden Triangle, if Thailand opens up casinos, they're going to be doing exactly the same thing. So this just would play right into the hands of these organizations, and it's going to just further entrench this problem into the Golden Triangle. where, okay, if you have casinos in Thailand, Thailand borders Myanmar, Laos, and Cambodia, three countries where these scam farms actually operate. You're going to have casinos. They already have casinos in Laos and in Myanmar, but if you have casinos in Thailand, it's just another avenue for these guys to launder money. And granted, you might get a few foreigners in there playing, but I look at this and go, this is playing right into the hands of organized crime, where it makes it easier for you now to move money from one casino to another casino back to a third casino within the region, and it's basically untraceable.
Yeah, particularly now with the casinos in Laos too. I
Mm-hmm.
mean, yeah, it's just a problem no matter how you slice it.
Yeah.
Uh,
So
anyways, on that
I was gonna
uplifting,
say, well, on that uplifting note, before we go, we should talk a little bit about who these guys are primarily targeting.
yeah,
So a lot of these scam farms are targeting older people. So it's primarily baby boomers and people that have money.
mm,
So your parents, my parents, and they're going after people that are less tech savvy. And in the last 3 years, 4 years, AI has basically changed and has developed so rapidly. There is what's called accent reduction technology. So when you talk
yeah.
to someone over the phone, it will completely mask or change your accent to where you can mimic another person. And you can also mimic where you're calling from. So you can have a fake phone number that says, "Oh, I'm calling from California and I sound like I'm from California, but I'm really in Thailand." And when these guys find people from Singapore or from Malaysia that speak English, then they can use these people to specifically target elderly people and say, "Oh, there is a problem with your bank, or there's a problem with, some sort of an account. We need your personal information." And that's really what they're after. They're going after the person's personal information where they can either sell that or they get them to click a link in an email, and then they can basically infiltrate their computer. They can steal virtually everything, see what they're doing, and basically ruin the person's life.
And
So
it's
be
worth
very, very
noting that
careful and tell your
accent
parents.
reduction technology uh, was developed for legitimate purposes. It it is not always used for legitimate purposes, but was essentially developed by companies who run call centers to create a more audience friendly experience because the majority of people you talk to, particularly in the United States, if you're talking to someone at a call center, the chances are incredibly high, if you're talking to an actual person, that they are not in the United States. They're in India or they're in the Philippines. So, because of that, companies have decided they want to put people at ease as much as possible. They develop this AI enhanced software. And of course, as soon as they started using it in legitimate business settings, people realized, oh, you can use this for other reasons as well. And in many cases, the software that the legitimate businesses are using is exactly the same as the illegitimate businesses. There's almost no difference in the technology, it's just how they're using it. Um, but yeah, that is a thing, and it is very targeted. This is not random, we're going to call 50 phone numbers and see who picks up. They definitely have a profile in the same way a company would create a customer profile. They have customer profiles. They know who they're going after. And yeah, don't be paranoid, but be aware that this industry exists and
Mm-hmm.
it
And
is out
also,
there. Yeah.
mm-hmm. Go ahead. Sorry.
No, 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 no. You go ahead, bud.
Okay, I was gonna say, and just be aware of what you share online because anything that you share online is always going to be out there. And if these guys are trying to build a specific profile targeting you, then they know whether you're on vacation, or they know how many kids you have, or they know where your kids are. They can come up with a scam or come up with a scheme and go, oh, so we're going after, let's say, Jill Robinson, who's outside of Chicago, and we figured out that she has a daughter who's studying in Europe. So
Mm.
Jill's daughter's in Europe. Let's come up with a plan to where we can basically mask somebody who's European who says Jill's daughter got hurt in an accident and Jill's daughter needs money sent for a hospital bill. And they'll, okay, we've got Jill's phone number, we've got her profile. We're going to give Jill a call and we're going to basically set up, create a fake hospital bill and go, okay, Jill, your daughter was hurt a couple of days ago, or a few hours ago in a scooter accident, and we need you to send money to pay for some sort of an emergency surgery. And if you don't do it within the next 30 minutes or 45 minutes, then there's a good chance that the doctor is not going to be able to perform it in time, and could potentially cost your daughter her life.
And this has been going on for years with Chinese citizens, the fake kidnapping scam,
Mm-hmm.
where again, you have a daughter or relatives abroad, you get a phone call. We need what's a large amount of yuan, Dave?
I don't know. I would say like 100,000 RMB.
I want 100,000 RMB. If you don't get 100,000 RMB in an hour, we're gonna start cutting off fingers and toes, and who knows where we'll go from there. Well, obviously, someone retired, probably saved a lot of money. This works quite often. And then, day or two later, you discover the person had their phone stolen and they've been fine. They've been walking around uh, totally intact and were never in any danger to begin with. So, this has been going on for a while. It's becoming a little more subtle, a little more nuanced, but it's the same scam. The scams don't really change, but the strategies sometimes do. Uh yeah, this is an ongoing thing, and to reiterate what we said, this is not going away anytime soon.
No, it is not. So be careful out there
Be
and
careful, everybody. And on
and
that
in those
note,
interwebs.
thank you so much for listening in this week, and please comment, like, subscribe. We appreciate all of your wonderful feedback, and thank you very much. This is On the Fringe.